It's time for Reason.
If you can put it on the ballot, and if you can get 51% of naive, ignorant individuals to not understand the purpose of the Second Amendment, to not understand the purpose of shooting a gun, to not understand the role of what having a gun or a militia is all about, to understand the background check process. You don't understand because you've never done it. To have that much of a voice. It is the blind leading the blind.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. On the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT-TV, channel 2610, and across the entire Mid-America Network. Welcome aboard. It is a Wednesday, the hashtag freedom-loving Wednesday, the way we roll every single week. We love having you here on a Wednesday morning, starting off your day, getting you set for the day, getting you pumped up, getting you excited. I know that you're ready to rock and roll today. 8 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, we have Facebook Live up and rolling, which I'm surprised. I really am surprised after the entire, congressional hearing that's going on with Mark Zuckerberg right now and with Facebook, that we're even allowed to broadcast on Facebook Live today, but it is. So therefore, you have a chance to be able to like it, share it all over the place. Let's break the algorithm of conservative messages on Facebook. And let's get the word out there. What do you say? 316-721-8255. You can email me, Andy, at KQAMradio.com. You can also shoot me a message on Twitter at Hoosier Reason. With all this discussion, which I do want to talk about this Mark Zuckerberg and with this hearing on Facebook with him in Congress, I want to start it off by relating it to a story. And I know it's early. I know it's a morning time. So therefore, usually we read stories at nighttime to go to bed. I read my daughter a story every single night to go to bed. But to start off the morning as well, I want to read you a story. And it's a story that you're very familiar with. Maybe you haven't heard it in a while. Or maybe you haven't heard the original story. Before it got manipulated and changed to be a little more PC. Before it got to be manipulated to be a little more child-friendly per se. But it's a story, an age-old story that you've heard probably many times when you were younger, and it starts off with a little girl called Little Red Riding Hood. And the girl walked through the woods to deliver her food to her sickly grandmother. In the original story, she was delivering wine and cake to her grandmother because, her grandmother's probably a drunk. Or they just really enjoy wine, depending on wherever the origination of the story came from. The big bad wolf wanted to eat the girl and the food in the basket. He secretly stalked her behind the trees, the bushes, the shrubs, patches of little and tall grass. He approached Little Red Riding Hood, and she naively told him where she was going. He suggested that the girl maybe pick up some flowers for her grandmother, which she does. In the meantime, while she does that, he goes to the grandmother's house and gains an entry by pretending to be the little girl. He swallows the grandmother whole, and in some stories locked her in the closet, but let's stick with the original story to where he swallowed the grandmother whole and waited for the girl, disguised now as the grandmother. When the girl arrived, she noticed that the grandmother looked very strange. Little Red Riding Hood then said, "What deep voice you have, Grandma. Better to greet you with, my dear." Remember this. "My goodness, what big eyes you have, Grandmother. Well, it's better to see you with, my dear. What big hands you have. Well, it's better to hug and grab you with, my dear." The wolf responded. And lastly, "What big mouth you have. And what better to eat you with, my dear." At which point the wolf jumps out of bed and eats her up too, and begins to fall asleep. That's usually where the story ends, and it's the moral of the story to be careful and actually have your awareness open and have your eyes open and be aware of your surroundings, what's going on. And there's a story and a meaning and a purpose behind that. There is a continuation of the story, though, with how much you may be or may not be familiar with this. In the original version, a woodcutter and a hunter come across the village and come across the house as well. In the traditional version, it shows that the woodcutter/hunter comes to the rescue with an axe, cuts the wolf open while sleeping, frees Little Red Riding Hood and the grandmother, who are unharmed in the belly of the wolf, refills the wolf in the body with heavy stones, so when the wolf awakens and tries to flee, the stones cause him to collapse and die because they're too heavy. The original story. Now, I say this story because I want to relate this to what's going on with Mark Zuckerberg, with Facebook, with social media, and the naiveness of many individuals thinking that we need to censor, or that even the government should be in the first place investigating something like Facebook and social media. When it comes down to it, I know that many individuals have said that conservatives have been silenced or censored or banned from Facebook, and that's something that we need to address to a certain degree. It is a private company, and if we don't like it, then usually with any other conservative message, we would say we're going to take our business elsewhere. We're not going to support this company because they don't like conservatives, and therefore we have other options. And if there is not another option in the private market, we will create another option so that way we can support the organization, the business that we like to support that actually has the same agenda as us. The free market capitalist way. Because in this story, if we want to show the analogy between the two, the story of Little Red Riding Hood and the current situation in Congress right now, we are, you and I, the users, we are Little Red Riding Hood. We are the innocent little children. We like to have fun. We're going to our grandma's house. And the idea of grandma, now grandma in this story obviously is not the most relevant part of the story, but the idea of grandma, the innocent, wonderful, loving, caring grandmother that you want to go and you want to bring the cookies and you want to bring the food, or in the traditional story, you want to bring the wine. We're going to grandmother's house because we love her so dearly. That is Facebook, is the idea, not the intent, but the idea of what grandmother is, that we love using it. We love going to Facebook. We love enjoying Facebook because it's fun, because we get to interact with people. We get to have the dialogue and debates. We get to see what our family and friends are doing. That is Facebook. That's what we need to do. But we should not be Little Red Riding Hood. We should be the woodcutter. We should be the hunter. We should be the ones that come in that slay the wolf, because the wolf, my friends, is the government in this situation. Tell me something. The government, whenever you give them an opportunity to solve something, what do? They end up causing more of a ruckus. They end up causing more of an issue. The government is the big bad wolf in this one. Right now, everybody thinks the big bad wolf is Facebook. That's not the case. That's not the case. The idea of Facebook is the sweet little old grandmother. The idea of the government is the big bad wolf. Not only are they out there to harm Facebook and to try and censor and trying to eat Facebook whole, because they would love to be able to bring it in under the government regulation, the big umbrella of government oversight, and control exactly what happens on there. What were all the discussions that you heard yesterday? Was the fact that, yes, some things were censored and that we need to fight some of the conservative censoring that happens on Facebook. That's a legit conversation to have. Sharing information and personal data. The fact that you, when you send a private message, the things that you're looking at, the pages that you're viewing, who you're conversing with, what you're looking at, what kind of sales you're looking at, what kind of advertisers you're looking at, all that data collected and not only stored it within the database of Facebook, but shared to other agencies, shared to marketing tools, shared to businesses. The government loves that kind of stuff. And tell me something. Has the government ever used in any way, shape, or form Facebook, social media, Twitter, any of these to use for any type of scanning of personal information, for the collection of metadata, for the collection of maybe who you're conversing with for national security purposes? They're already using this information while they're investigating Facebook for the same thing that the government does every single day. The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent Little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the public sector, in the private sector. We need to be very cautious of this. And right now, you and I, we're the innocent Little Red Riding Hood that's riding along hoping to use the innocent little program like Facebook that is the sweet little idea of grandmother, and we're being used, we're being taken advantage of, and we cannot allow that to happen. We need to be the woodcutter. We need to be the hunter that needs to be a little more bold, that needs to be a little more protected, that needs be a little bit more aware of the surroundings. And we come in, we don't care what Facebook's doing, we don't care what the government's doing. We come in, we gut both of them, we release them, we save the idea of what the intent and purpose of the program was in the first place. We save the innocent little naiveness, and then we walk away and do our business. That's really what we need to do here. Now, we can talk about, and I have some of the audio clips that we will play with the hearing that happened yesterday with some of the different senators that did interview Mark Zuckerberg, and we'll talk about some of the ideas that they brought up and some of the concerns that they brought up, because some of them are legit concerns. But what was the main root of all of their questions yesterday just about? Was the fact that they were censoring and the fact that there was data sharing, and that the government should regulate that by passing legislation in order to control and regulate, which Mark Zuckerberg even himself admitted would probably be a good idea, to have some type of oversight, some type of censoring, some type of control that the government should have over this company, over the industry, over the internet, over social media, over your right to be able to search whatever you want to search online, because the government needs to protect us. They need to screen out what they consider hashtag fake news. They need to consider what they need to censor and regulate what they fear may be too violent or maybe too triggering for some individuals with their very sensitive emotions, and we cannot allow that to happen. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, Facebook right now is using and still enjoying this interview when it comes to Congress. And Congress is eating it up because they use this same metadata, they use this same privacy and personal information while they're saying and trying to investigate Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook for doing the same thing that the government's been doing for a long time. We cannot be the naive little innocent child like Little Red Riding Hood going to her grandmother's house and then saying, oh, gee, something looks a little strange here. Oh, too late. We've already been eaten. Let's not be that, shall we?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Into it, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK, broadcasting out of Wichita, Kansas. Great to have you along today on a Wednesday. Hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's the way we roll along today. And I want to hear from you on this. Your thoughts on the whole hearing yesterday, Mark Zuckerberg. Let me tell you something. Mark Zuckerberg, first off, he looks scared. He looked like a scared little child up in front of Congress testifying, talking about the product, talking about what he does, talking about what's going on with security, yada, yada. He looks scared. Now, maybe that's his personality. I don't know. I don't know Mark Zuckerberg, obviously. But he looked like a very scared child. His eyes were all bug-eyed. And every time that someone would address him, in every question, if you notice, well, Senator, let me tell you, Senator, yeah, I get that it's a sign of respect, and I would do kind of the same thing. But at the same time, wasn't it a little overboard yesterday? The reason I bring this up, and we'll play some of the audio clips. I have some of the audio clips in a minute, and I do want to play them. But the reason I bring this up is, yes, we should find out why Facebook would want to censor conservative outlets, just because of the fact that it is a private business, and you would think you'd want to have as many users as you possibly can without trying to eradicate some or trying to weed some out or trying to minimize some, because you want to appeal to, and look, any business would want to appeal to as many people as they possibly can. They don't want to say, sorry, you're not welcome here because we don't like you. And it really goes into the same thing of, does the baker that chooses not to bake a cake for a gay wedding, is that really the smart thing? Well, you know what? If that's what they believe religiously or personally, they have the prerogative to do so. Why they would want to do so? Well, you know what? Maybe they don't like it for the religious reasons or for the personal reasons, but guess what? They lost out on business. So instead of the LGBTQ member, gay member that's wanting to get the cake for the gay wedding, instead of being really upset and trying to start a lawsuit about it, then go start your own business that allows that type of demographic. And then guess what? All of a sudden you've created a niche in the market to where you're going to be very successful, obviously, if there's going to be a large demand for it. It's the same story we saw with the coffee shop, where the gay individual that owned the coffee shop did not like the anti-abortionists that were in there with their signs that were having a cup of coffee after their protest out in the streets. And he said, get out and blankety, blankety, blank, and we don't like you and yada, 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 and get out because we're not going to serve you. And they said, well, wait a second, we're not causing any issue. We just want a cup of coffee. I don't care. You don't like my lifestyle. I don't like you. Get out. I don't want to serve you. All right. You know what? We're going to go and take our business elsewhere. That's Mark Zuckerberg and with Facebook right now. It's a very simple concept to where if we're concerned about our privacy, if we're concerned about our personal data being shared, our personal conversations being shared, the personal sites that we're visiting being shared, if we're worried about all of that, if we're worried about being censored on Facebook and on social media, we'll take our business elsewhere. It's a very simple concept. It does not need government regulation because every senator in there had talked about government regulation on Facebook because their eyes are gleaming. They are excited. They're giddy. Why? Because it's a new industry they've been working towards for a very long time to try and begin regulating and overseeing, and now they have the opportunity to do so. Every time there's a problem, every time there's an issue, we look towards the government for the solution. Look at David Hogg with the anti-gun regulation and the anti-gun movement happening right now with the quote-unquote March for Our Lives. What do? Government, you failed us. You haven't been able to stop gun violence. You haven't been able to stop school shootings. You haven't done anything to get rid of AR-15s and terrible weapons. You failed us. No. Our community failed us because we haven't raised children to be right, to treat elders with respect the way that we need to. We have raised individuals that don't respect life. We've raised individuals that actually want to cause harm and want to cause violence. The community has failed, not the government. The government's got nothing to do with it. But yet we look to the government for the answers. Now in this case, oh, look, my private data is being shared. Oh, look, my private information is being compromised. Oh, look, my conservative group or my conservative page is being censored and shut down. Look at Diamond and Silk, the two ladies that talk about Donald Trump. They got shut down with over 1.5 million followers. So what do? Government, you failed us. Government, you need to do something about this because we want the government to solve our problems. And they're just giddy. They're giddy. They're loving it. So they go in and they talk big and they scare Mark Zuckerberg to death and they make him look like a little child that's about to whiz himself because he just doesn't know how to handle it and he's just stuttering all over and himself. And if you notice, all the questions that they ask, he says very, very little. All the questions that they actually ask him, they really say very, very little about trying to explain how it actually happened, what they're doing to resolve it, and what can be done in the future from him and as a company to ensure the users of Facebook that they're not going to do this any longer. But the government, oh, their eyes are just as bug-eyed. They're giddy. They're excited because now, let me ask you something. How many times has there been hacking into government databases with personal information and personal data being shared and spread out and being hacked or compromised from government databases? And they're going to be the ones that try and regulate Facebook to make sure that doesn't happen again? How many times have we discussed over the last, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years about metadata being collected from everyone that as soon as you go online, if you go to a website, if you're any kind of phone call, any kind of text message, any type of Skype or video feed or anything that you do, how many times has that been discussed about being collected in government databases as metadata? And we're concerned about Facebook doing it? How many times has Facebook or has government used Facebook or social media or Twitter or whoever and used that information to track down a domestic terrorist, someone of threat, someone who's threatened somebody else, someone who is a danger, someone who may be a terrorist, someone who has used these outlets to do something horrible? Or maybe they haven't, and we just collected that data for the sake of collecting it. And they're going to be the ones that we're going to give the ability and the power to regulate Facebook to make sure it doesn't happen anymore. Give me a break. This is just the doors, the Pandora's door opening wide open saying, please, industry, let us regulate you as the government so we can make sure that we can censor you and we can hash out the quote-unquote fake news. I don't buy it. We were so excited when Donald Trump got elected that we weren't going to be bullied any longer. We weren't going to have people push us around. We're not going to apologize for who we are. And we're not going to let people walk all over us. We're not going to tolerate it because we're not the weak, spineless country that we used to be.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Making it happen today. Welcome back into it. This is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier. It's an honor to have you along today, starting off a brand new day on a Wednesday morning. And I want to hear from you. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. By the way, all the discussion that we're having, the concerns that we're having with the government wanting to regulate, with Facebook censoring, with all of these issues, Colorado Senator Cory Gardner did make the comment saying that he fears that the government could start regulating the internet because of this, because it's an opportunity to do so. Republican Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado, by the way, even a wishy-washy moderate Republican, that Cory Gardner is. I was there actually in Colorado when he got elected as the senator, and they pawned him off to be the craziest, radical, insane, fringe, right-wing conservative nut job when he was a House member, and he really wasn't. He really was. He was actually somewhat of a very moderate Republican, but boy, oh boy, I tell you what, they shut down parts of the cities when he was speaking because they hated him so much. He was the one that they were saying that he was going to get rid of all the condoms in the area because the fact that he didn't believe in abortion or anything, so that way the safe sex thing, he wanted the more religious aspect. It was weird. It was very odd how they went after him for that Senate. Anyways, nonetheless, Cory Gardner, Republican senator for Colorado, fears congressional hearings with Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg could lead to further government regulation on the interweb. Gardner thinks the politicians will take advantage of Facebook's situation and use it as a way of increasing their power over a free and open internet. Shocker, right? Quote, I think it treads on something very tenuous ground. There may be some people who wish to look at the opportunity to have regulation of the internet, regulation over speech, regulation over content. I'm very concerned about that, and I think it's alarming part of the direction the questions could take this afternoon. And that's exactly what happened. Now, there were some very good questions that happened and some very not so good questions that happened when it came to some of the content. And one of them, actually surprisingly, Dick Durbin made a really interesting comment, and that's really one of the big ones that's been used in some of the mainstream as a recap of what happened yesterday. But Dick Durbin actually made a really good point yesterday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
I think that may be what this is all about. Your right to privacy, the limits of your right to privacy, and how much you give away in modern America in the name of, quote, connecting people around the world. The question basically of what information Facebook's collecting, who they're sending it to, and whether they ever asked me in advance my permission to do that.
That's a really good point. I mean, would you like to share what hotel you stayed in last night? Do you want to share who you talked with? If you had any private conversations, any private text messages, any private phone conversations, would you care to share those publicly for everybody to be able to? No, I would not. Okay, then why do you think it's okay for that data to be collected from everybody else that's doing that in a private message on Facebook, maybe sending it to their boyfriend or girlfriend or husband, wife, or even just a friend or a business associate or somebody, and that conversation, maybe someone thinking about running for office at some point, and hey, you know what, let's start doing this, I don't know, and then it just gets out there, oh, this person, we're going to destroy them. Maybe someone's doing something they're not supposed to be doing on social media, and that gets out there. Should they be doing it, and is that kind of retaliation, or is it kind of karma? Yeah, kind of, but at the same time, there's a personal, private side to that as well. We need to be very careful when we allow the government to look into this, because number one, they do it themselves. Number two, they see the opportunity to regulate heavily a brand new industry. Barack Obama tried this for a long time. If you remember, Barack Obama tried to begin regulating the internet and saying that we need to silence freedom, we need to silence fake news, we need to silence certain groups. If you remember the IRS scandals, to where the IRS was coming after certain conservative organizations, he was talking about a free internet, but at the same time saying that we need to regulate many of these. We need to have the algorithms in place, and this has been a fear for a very long time. As we change the dictionary on the definition of certain words like fascism or socialism or conservatism, and as we change even the textbooks of what this is, try and go on Google and try and search something, and I guarantee you that it's not going to be the most conservative realism of what it used to be. It's going to be some of the political agenda driven articles that pop up first on the top of your Google search, and then you have to dig a little bit deeper in order to find the right ones, if you can even find some of them at all any longer. That's concern that we need to have, and it's not going to stop at Facebook. If they get their greedy hands into one industry, Facebook alone, it's going to crumble. The entire industry is going to crumble. It's going to be Twitter. It's going to be Pinterest. It's going to be, I don't know, whatever other social media groups that you actually can use. It's going to be any different kind of apps you can use on your phone. It's going to be, I know right now that Apple is very somewhat secure about being able to provide or secure your information. If you remember, what was it, a terrorist or a murderer or something, they had their phone and they were trying to get information for that phone. And Apple said, yeah, no, you're not going to. It's locked. We're not going to provide that information to you. And that was a big hoopla, if you remember that. That's what I want. I want a business to say, you know what, that's their private information. I don't care. We're not going to share it. We're not going to do anything. It is secure, and not even the government should be able to get that information. Others say, let's make it wide open and transparent, baby. It's social media, and let's make it transparent. The government should be able to have all of it because that way we can stop individuals from doing harm, but that allows the government to control it. We need to remember what privacy is. We need to remember what personal security is. We need to remember what personal accountability is. And we need to take that into our own hands, not demand the government to fix it for us. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones this morning. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Pete.
What's going on, Pete?
Well, I think you're kind of missing the boat here.
Okay.
With Zuckerberg and Facebook and the government. First off, you're right. Facebook's been doing what the NSA has been trying to do for years.
Sure.
And people are volunteering their information. So first off, to all those people that willingly volunteer their information to Facebook, y'all are idiots. Because you're giving away what you scream about the government taking.
So I'm guessing you don't have a Facebook account.
No, I
Okay.
don't have any social media account.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so that having been said, the next thing that comes to mind is Zuckerberg. The only reason this is a dog and pony show.
Sure.
In front of him, in front of the tower. He was
sure.
not under oath.
No, you're right. He's not under oath, and I don't remember the last time that some of these hearings or investigations actually went anywhere to where we came out with an end solution. Half of the questions that he answered yesterday, he was like, "I don't know. I'll have to get back the information to you if you request it from my office, and I'll send it to you," sort of thing. And it takes 6 months for him to receive it, and then they review it, and then it just kind of fades out, and people forget all about it. So you're right. I mean, it's really a dog and pony show because it's not going to go anywhere or do anything other than say the government gets more opportunity to say, hey, we got a new industry that we can start regulating little by little because people want us to try and protect them from private companies like social media and like Facebook.
Well, but like I said, the whole thing is a dog and pony show. And Zuckerberg actually, in the not the previous election, but in 2012, Obama was using the same information that Cambridge Analytica got that Trump used.
Sure.
So what this is the left's way of parading Zuckerberg out here. And Zuckerberg is not the innocent little boy. He is a left-wing radical goon.
Sure.
Just like Dick Durbin and the rest of them. This is all political theater, and this is done for public consumption. Now, as far as regulating the internet, I think Zuckerberg would welcome that, given his left-leaning.
Oh,
bent.
Absolutely, and that's the whole point. I mean, listen to this. Listen. Stay on
Zuckerberg is not the innocent victim here. Zuckerberg is the perpetrator. He's the enabler.
Oh, absolutely. No, and he admits that. He even listen to this. This is the question that Ted Cruz asked yesterday when it comes to the censoring of conservative organizations on Facebook, which, again, we need to have that conversation. If Mark Zuckerberg wants to continue to have users on Facebook that are of the conservative mind to have a dialogue, we need to have that. But you're right. They're not about freedom of speech. They're not about dialogue. And this is what his response was to Ted Cruz.
There have been numerous instances with Facebook. In May of 2016, Gizmodo reported that Facebook had purposely and routinely suppressed conservative stories from trending news, including stories about CPAC, including stories about Mitt Romney, including stories about the Lois Lerner IRS scandal, including stories about Glenn Beck. In addition to that, Facebook has initially shut down the Chick-fil-A Appreciation Day page, has blocked a post of a Fox News reporter, has blocked over 24 Catholic pages, and most recently blocked Trump supporters Diamond and Silk's page with 1.2 million Facebook followers after determining their content and brand were, quote, unsafe to the community. To a great many Americans, that appears to be a pervasive pattern of political bias. Do you agree with that assessment?
Senator, let me say a few things about this. First, I understand where that concern is coming from because Facebook and the tech industry are located in Silicon Valley, which is an extremely left-leaning place. And this is actually a concern that I have and that I try to root out in the company, is making sure that we don't have any bias in the work that we do. And I think it is a fair concern that that people would at least wonder about.
Yeah, so right there, we admit, yeah, you know what, that's been a concern. A lot of people very concerned about it, but you know what, where my tech industry actually is located in Silicon Valley is very liberal, and I've been concerned about conservatives being censored here as well, but yet you haven't done anything about it, and you've allowed it to continue, which shows that we don't like the freedom of speech, we don't like the dialogue, we don't like the debates, we are about censoring conservative organizations. We openly admit that we're about censoring conservative organizations on my platform, so that way we can show that we're for everybody, but as long as you have somewhat of the same like-minded ideals, then you're welcome on Facebook with a lot of your platforms. That's really what he just admitted right there, being interviewed by Ted Cruz.
Andy, what Zuckerberg just responded to that Cruz question is like an arsonist yelling fire.
Right.
I mean, it's complete hyperbole. It's like the real question is, okay, Mr. Zuckerberg, you knew this was going on. Why did you let it?
Exactly.
If you're so concerned about the left-wing bent in Silicon Valley, why did you let it happen?
Which is why that this entire thing, and like you mentioned and like I had mentioned, that this entire thing is not only absurd, and it is kind of the dog and pony show, but it's also very dangerous because he plays it, he acts like he's the innocent one, but he's really not, and we're allowing this to happen to give the government opportunity to control it. At the same time, we're not solving anything, but we're making ourselves feel better. Got to take a break. Wrapping up hour number 1 here. Stay tuned. This is The Voice of Reason. Welcome back into a wrapping up hour number 1. Great to have you along today on a Wednesday. Hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. We love freedom. We love conservatism. We love individualism. We love anti-governmentism. And I don't mean that in the sense that we don't want any type of government. That's absurd. Don't try and lump me in with anarchists. That's actually on the progressive side, wanting to cause issues, right? Yeah, that's not what we're about. Anti-governmentism in the sense of we like our individual sovereignty. Yes, we need a government, but we need it basic, we need it limited, and we need to have accountability on there. And it's not there to solve every one of our problems. 316-721-8255. I want to continue on that discussion in a little bit later on in the show when it comes to some of the other audio clips we have from the interviews and the Mark Zuckerberg and the Facebook. And there's some new apps and some new conservative social media outlets that are going to be starting up apparently pretty soon, and I'll let you know. Actually just had a listener on Facebook Live mention that For Which We Stand app and a couple other ones like that. So I actually have a list that is coming out. I actually have a list in hour number 2 that we will talk about as well, with some dangerous apps that we need to be concerned about, especially for our children, and we'll talk about that just a little bit later. But I want to bring it back home to the home front here temporarily. There was a study done, or a polling done, from the Docking Institute of Public Affairs at Fort Hays State University regarding our governor's election coming up in just a few months. And there were 2 questions on there. First, to know the candidates and how popular they may be when it comes to name recognition. And the second question is their likability. And it was kind of an interesting poll, as the top recognized names. Chris Kobach was number 1 with 85% when it comes to recognition. Greg Orman, the independent governor's candidate, 56%. So there's even a big wide difference there. But Greg Orman coming in as number 2. Current governor Jeff Collier at 54%. Jim Barnett at 40%. Wink Hartman, who's not even in the race anymore, at 39%. Carl Brewer, the Democrat, at 38%. And Ethan Randall is the high school libertarian candidate that left the Republican side and went to the libertarian side at 5%. And it boggles the mind how this is the lineup right now when we have individuals like Jim Ward that's in the current legislature. We have Laura Kelly that's in the legislature. Some of the Democrat candidates that aren't even listed on here on the recognition. Now, when it comes to the likability, it's a little bit different, as Laura Kelly had 25% likability, and Chris Kobach was the number one for the most negative view at 41%, which, of course, there's going to be a very partisan either like or dislike when it comes to Chris Kobach, so I don't look much into that. But I find it fascinating that, first off, there's not more Democratic candidates on the recognition page as opposed to the Republicans. And right now, the only ones that are really recognized, Kobach right now at 85%, Collier at 54%, Jim Barnett at 40%, and then Ethan Randall is at 5%. Ken Seltzer wasn't even listed on here as a recognized individual. Wink Hartman, that's not even in the race anymore, is being recognized at 39%, which I think could really help Chris Kobach in that sense, since they really partnered up together, and their recognition between the two could really help them out. And then Jim Barnett at 40%, Jeff Collier at 54%. But number two, the independent candidate, Greg Orman, right now being number two on the most recognized at 56%. Now, according to the study as well with the Dockings Institute, the more you push your ideas, the more likely it is going to be that you're going to have people that dislike your ideas, and they get much more inflamed by all the attention that you receive, which isn't much of a shocker. But when we really sit back and look at it, what do we complain about? You and I as conservatives. What do we really look at, and what are we so frustrated about all the time is that during the campaign trail, when they're talking to the public, when they're talking to the media, even during some radio interviews or TV interviews, that our politicians or our candidates really don't say a whole lot, right? And we're really upset about that. You didn't say anything. That was just a bunch of fluff. That was feel-good jargon. That was just the campaign talking points, but you're not going to actually implement that when you get into office. And we need to be very cautious about who we elect, because we want to know your detailed plans on what you're going to do. But when they give the detailed plans and we turn around and say, I don't like it, I'm not going to support you. We're kind of in the catch-22, are we not? And, of course, there's always going to be those critics. There's always going to be those individuals that no matter what you say, they're never going to like it. I mean, if Congressman Ron Estes right now came in and started talking to the progressive Bernie Sanders-ites and the James Thompson candidate supporters, then obviously they're going to be hating him for all the detailed plans that he gives. He could even walk into many Republican plans right now and talk about some ideas, and some will say that he's too conservative. Others say he's not conservative enough. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the catch-22. We're in between the rock and the hard place, because we want our politicians to give us details on what they want to do, but yet we're never content with the ideas that they give us. It's the circle that never ends, my friends. But right now, likability, the more you actually promote a specific detail, the less you're actually liked, but the more you're recognized. Take that for what it's actually worth. Hour number 2, The Voice of Reason, coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
If you can put it on the ballot, and if you can get 51% of naive, ignorant individuals to not understand the purpose of the Second Amendment, to not understand the purpose of shooting a gun, to not understand the role of what having a gun or a militia is all about, to understand the background check process. You don't understand because you've never done it. To have that much of a voice. It is the blind leading the blind.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along today on a hashtag freedom-loving Wednesday. We love freedom. We love individual sovereignty. We love individualism. We don't care about that groupthink junk. We don't care about the government regulation junk. We don't care about any of it in any way, shape, or form. Why? Because we are the ones that can set our own fate, set our own destiny, and we can do it all by our own selves, not having our hands held by the sweet, loving government that just wants to take care of us on a daily basis. Welcome in. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. 8 minutes past the hour. We have a big show coming up for you today. I'm really excited, as in about 45 minutes, we'll get our county update. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell will be joining us, as he does every single week on a Wednesday. And in the 8 o'clock hour, Dr. Wes Parham, author of the new book, Be a Hater. Are we a society of haters today? As we talk about hate speech online, as we have violence going around the nation, as we have a lot of issues that we need to address. Are we a nation of haters? We'll talk about that with Dr. Wes Parham coming up in just an hour from now. But I want to talk about, if you want to talk about the Mark Zuckerberg hearings that happened in Washington, D.C. Yesterday and last night, and today it continues on. We played some of the clips. We'll play them again for you in just a little bit. But I want to not necessarily just talk about Facebook. I just want to talk about social media in general and the apps in general and how it affects our children. And as we've seen a lot of the issues about children that are going on shooting sprees at high schools, we're seeing a lot of the violence and the threats happening on social media, the social media bullying that we're seeing, a lot of individuals, even in the Wichita area in the state of Kansas, a lot of students that we're seeing, high school students that are being suspended, that are getting in trouble, that are going to detention, that are having a lot of issues because they've made threats online. Or the promiscuousness that's happening on social media with a lot of the young individuals that end up getting involved in some of that. And there's a big issue, and the question is, whose responsibility is that to address? Is it us as the parent, as the individual, or is it the government's prerogative? And I came across a list of apps yesterday, and it was on social media. It was actually on Facebook, 10 apps that teens are using that parents need to know about. And I want to read you some of them. Now, I have not heard of these. I have a smartphone. I very rarely use my smartphone other than for texting and checking my email. And yes, I have Facebook on here because we have a lot of people that use Facebook for social media and for connection and for the show. That's my duty. I got to stay out that's my marketing tool. I got to be able to share stories. I got to talk about stuff. I have to post the links to the podcast or to the different Facebook Lives that we do or whatever. So I use that, and I use that on my phone. Other than that, I have a game on here. Actually, right now I'm playing the Star Wars game. It's actually a lot of fun where you build up your Star Wars characters and you gain more of them, and then you fight different battles, and that's a lot of fun. And I do that on the rare occasion that I actually get a chance to actually sit and play games. Other than that, I don't use my phone for a whole lot. That's really all that I use it for, is for my email, my texting, my phone calls, and my Facebook. And once in a while, a game. And usually the game I play until it gets really boring and slow and it takes 5 days to build something, or a lot of people like it for whatever reason, we're all about this interaction with everybody else on playing the app and playing the game, that as soon as you hit a certain level, then they can attack you and you can attack them online. So you sleep and then you wake up in the middle of the night, or you wake up the next morning and your entire base is wiped out because someone came in and raided you because you didn't have your defenses built up. I'm like, that's stupid. And I delete it and I start a new game. And that's about the point that I actually just kind of give up because it's dumb. I don't have time to play it or sink myself into that much because I just don't do that. But the young generation today, even younger than myself, they use their phones for everything, for Snapchat. I have Snapchat on my phone. I think I've used it twice. And it was because my 3-year-old daughter likes to put the fun little filters on the photos so that way we can send it to family members. That's about the extent of what I've used Snapchat to. I didn't even know what Snapchat was until probably about 6 months ago because I don't use it. I don't care. But there are some apps that people need to know about, especially parents with their children, high school, middle school children using, I would say high school, I guess young adults, but they're individuals, their kids are using that we need to be concerned about. Now, I've mentioned this many times before, and I don't know if people agree with me or disagree with me on this, but my daughter, I'm sorry, I do not care. She will not be getting a smartphone. She will not be getting a tablet. She will not be getting any of this until she starts driving. That's just the fact of the matter. I will not see, my dad used to drive, when we lived in Colorado, my dad used to drive a school bus every day. And every once in a while we'd ride with him if we were going home at the same time or whatever. And we'd go to the elementary school because they got out just a little bit later than the high school or the middle school. And I would see these kids, 5, 6 years old, first graders, whatever that is, 6, 7-year-old, walking to the school buses with their earbuds in, playing on their phone, listening to music. And it boggled my mind because I never had that stuff when I was a kid. Now, I'm not going to turn into the Laura Ingraham type of I hate all young kids and everything that they're doing sort of thing and be the old biddy. I'm not going to be that. And she does that a lot on her show. And I love her to death. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy Laura Ingraham. But sometimes it's just like, come on. Maybe I am a little more loose on that. I have a tattoo. I know she went off on tattoos a while ago. And if I had the choice, if my wife would let me, I would probably have a sleeve tattoo just because I enjoy them. And there is a purpose behind them. But she does make some valid points on a lot of these cases, one of them being social media and the protection we need to have with our children on social media. I'm sorry, my child is not going to have a Facebook account or any type of social media account until they choose to do so when they go off to college. That's when I created mine. I did not have one in high school. I did not have a phone until I started driving and I was going into athletics and I was going to different trips and I was doing certain things with the school, and I needed a phone to be able to communicate with my parents on when I was going to be home and what was going on and that everything was fine. That's the only time. And by the way, it was not a smartphone, but it was one of the flip phones where you really could only call. And if you had limited number of texts, then you would go over those texts and you'd start getting crazy high cell phone bill. And then your parents would be coming down on you saying, guess what? You need to pay for this. And that's really what we need to be at, again, because we're being sucked in too much of the social media junk, or the apps are just being sucked into whatever. But some of them are getting a little bad. Now, I don't know these, so if you've heard of these, I'd love for you to call in and explain some of them. And maybe these are not necessarily what they're intended for, but what maybe students are using them for. But these are the 10 apps that parents need to know about for your children. Number 1, calculator. But it's not just a calculator, because your phone usually has a calculator already on it, but a calculator with a percentage sign. Calculator percent. And apparently this app looks like a calculator, but it functions as a secret photo vault to store photos on. Never heard of it. I tried to search it on my app thing on my phone. I couldn't find it. So maybe it's been deleted, maybe it's been gone, but I don't know. Maybe you've heard of it. Omegle, a free online chat website that promotes chatting anonymously to strangers. Now, I searched it, and it didn't come up as Omegle. It came up with the option to search Omegle, but it did not come up as an actual app called Omegle. And I searched it, and it came up as a online dating video chat. Now, obviously, I did not download these, or I did not try and explore these, but I did look for the app to try and get the definition and the description of what these actually are. But it was a dating app for video chatting, so that way you could anonymously video chat with somebody on social media to try and date them. There's no room for shenanigans to happen there, right? How about Yellow? This app called just flat out Yellow. This app is designed to allow teens to flirt with each other in another Tinder-like atmosphere. Now, I did just search that one, and it's got a 3.8 rating. When you search Yellow, it comes up with Yubo, Y-U-B-O, live video chatting with friends. Yubo is the social video app that makes new friends all around the world and have fun. Friendship is going to the next level. Over 15 million people have signed up for Yubo to start making friends. Live video profiles, create emojis for yourself, and then be able to chat with people all around the world. And I'm noticing that it's all about video chatting. And the first thing that pops up on these are people that like to look a little promiscuous. No, I'm not going to download these, but that's what's happening. These are children's apps, for crying out loud. Whisper is another one, an anonymous app where the creators promote sharing secrets and meeting new people, where they promote sharing secrets. And what the thought is that you create a false name on here, and you can talk about real thoughts without actually being held accountable for that. Now, we already have the online bullies that try to be the trolls because they feel really empowered by being able to, hey, I'd take you on in the street tomorrow if you were around here, if you weren't like 500,000 miles away. And then they can talk really tough, or they call you names, or they call you a jerk, or they try and, especially during political debates, and they get really upset with you, then you've noticed these, that they try and act really, really tough online, but they would never say these things to your face. We've lost respect for individuals because of social media. Now it's being taken to a whole new level, because now you don't even have to put your name on there. You can actually have a whisper app to talk about issues, talk about events, probably trash people all you want to, and no one knows who you are. You're anonymous. How sick is that? But yet, we have these apps, and these are just a few of them. There's a lot more of them on here that we can get into, but if you've heard of these apps, or if you would allow your children to have them, or what we can do as the parents to try and protect our children from these types of things. I tell you what, my 3-year-old daughter, I don't care if they say she's living in the dark ages. I do not care if the schools that she goes to pretty much says, yeah, she needs a smartphone, and she needs some type of tablet, iTablet or whatever, iPad or something, because that's how we're going to do our homework and we're going to build apps. Sorry, not going to happen. I will homeschool her before she does that, because she will not have those types of things. She does play with the tablet that we have at home once in a while for ABC Mouse, because she's learning about that stuff and she enjoys that. But she's not allowed into, and she doesn't know how to operate it other than once we pull up the app. She's not going to get these things. I'm sorry. It's not. She may live in the dark ages. I do not care. She may be behind the times on that. I do not care. She will not get those. And by the time she starts driving, she will get a flip phone where she will be able to call us, and any text message that she sends, I hope she has a part-time job to be able to pay for those, because I will not be covering them. I know it sounds heartless, and I may be a terrible father for that, but I do not care, because she will not be involved in some of this stuff. 19 minutes past the hour. The Voice of Reason, living in the dark ages with my upcoming child. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hate speech?
Senator, I think that this is a really hard question, and I think it's one of the reasons why we struggle with it. There are certain definitions that we have around, calling for violence or.
Let's just agree on that. If somebody's calling for violence, that shouldn't be there. I'm worried about the psychological categories around speech. You used language of safety and protection earlier. We see this happening on college campuses all across the country. It's dangerous. 40% of Americans under age 35 tell pollsters they think the First Amendment is dangerous because you might use your freedom to say something that hurts somebody else's feelings. Guess what? There are some really passionately held views about the abortion issue on this panel today. Can you imagine a world where you might decide that pro-lifers are prohibited from speaking about their abortion views on your content, on your platform?
I certainly would not want that to be the case.
It might really be unsettling to people who've had an abortion to have an open debate about that, wouldn't it?
It might be, but I don't think that would fit any of the definitions of what we have.
Thanks. I wouldn't want you to leave here today and think there's sort of a unified view in the Congress that you should be moving toward policing more and more and more speech. I think violence has no place on your platform. Sex traffickers and human traffickers have no place on your platform. But vigorous debates, adults need to engage in vigorous debates.
That was Senator Ben Sasse interviewing Mark Zuckerberg yesterday, and some interesting comments there. Again, a whole lot of nothing. If you notice, this is what I don't like about some of these hearings, is that you have a limited time to actually ask the question, and they just ram through them, bam, bam, and they get like 5 or 6 minutes, period. And that's it. Like a couple of them, they cut them off mid-question as they were trying to ask Zuckerberg a question. So if Zuckerberg didn't like the question or didn't know how to respond because he was caught up on something, I don't know. I just don't. I don't know. I have to get back to you on that one. It doesn't make any sense with what you're trying to actually explain here. Can you rephrase the question? Sorry. Next question. The next person. Okay, thanks. Did you notice Zuckerberg? To me, he looked like he was about to whiz himself the entire. His eyes were all bug-eyed. He was scared. He was, well, Senator, let me try to explain this for you a little bit here. There's 3 different parts I can go around with this. How would you like this to be explained? I just used up 20 seconds. Can you please rephrase the question so I can ask again? Little insane. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK, the dog and pony show that happened yesterday. The government itching to get its greedy hands into the industry of the interweb and regulation of the interweb, while we demand Facebook, a private entity, to do something about its censorship and its private data sharing, while Zuckerberg just like, whatever. I've been donating to you guys enough that I'll get whatever I want to out of this. I do want to shift gears just for a minute, and I've noticed a trend. A lot of this has been about technology, been about social media, been about relaying info on the interweb. And Rick mentioned this during the news, but the man accused of making a hoax emergency call that led to the fatal police shooting of an unarmed man has gained access to the interweb inside the Sedgwick County Jail. This had tipped to Cake TV. All right, here's what he tweeted. He was able to, and it happened with a software update in the jail to where a few of these inmates were actually able to access their Twitter account from the computer in there. Now, I got to tour through the Hutchinson Corrections Facility, the state correction facility up in Hutch, a few months ago, and I had a great time, and I expressed that, and I talked about my trip up there and the tour that I got to go see. And in each one of the cell blocks, there was one computer. And every once in a while, the inmates would have a chance to go to the computer and check, and they had an email account set up through the prison to where they could check their email if they have any email from, I don't know, from their family or relatives or from their lawyer in some cases. I don't know. I'm assuming that's what it is. But they had their email account set up, so they weren't able to access the actual internet or access anything outside of that network there at the facility or as the state or whoever. And that's how it was set up. So, but apparently there was a software update at the Sedgwick County Jail that allowed them for a few hours until they recognizes access to get on social media. And one of the individuals that's in the Sedgwick County Jail that's been accused of swatting, where we're trying to, I don't know, like stop swatting because people are sick-minded like that, wanting to create false pranks, got on Twitter and made a tweet. And this is what I had to say. All right. And I got to make sure that I have this on hand here because it got a little vulgar because that's just what they do because it's a sick individual. All right, now who is talking? Your is about to get swatted. That's what he tweeted. So knowing that he's in prison or in jail because he's swatted and saying now who's talking because guess what? Now you're about to get swatted yourself. During the investigation, it was discovered that software upgrade was one of the inmates' kiosks was done inappropriately by the vendor, which I'm not concerned about. You know what? It was a mistake. It was, the IT upgrade that actually did that. I'm not too concerned about that aspect of it. What I am concerned about, which is why I'm such an advocate for that swatting bill that we passed locally and at the statewide level, why we need to have it at the federal level with trying to punish these swatters because they know what they're doing. They know the intent. They know that potentially someone could get harmed, and this is their vendetta to go out and harm someone intentionally and then look back and say, I was just doing a prank. I asked earlier, if you remember weeks ago, about the psyche of someone that wanted to pull a prank like that, whether they thought it was funny or whether they wanted to cause harm. I think we have our answer. They're mentally ill and they want to cause harm. They just want someone else to pull the trigger for them rather than them do it themselves. They're sick and they need to be punished.
Keeping political talk trendy.
Oh my God, yes, more.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Make it happen today. It's a Wednesday, a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's the way we roll today. And it's great to have you along. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, coming up in about 15 minutes, we do have Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell will be joining the program. Also in hour number 3, Dr. Wes Parham, author of the book, Be a Hater. Do we have too much hate in the world? With that said, let's go right to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Good morning, Eddie. How are you, sir?
I have a question. If you would ask Commissioner Howell
this
question. First of all, I have great respect for him. I think he's an A, number one. I think he's about the only one up there that doesn't have some kind of a cloud hanging over him. It seems like they're all throwing stones at one another. But when it comes to cell phone towers, it seems like that the good of the community. In other words, when you're driving down the street out in the driving down in the county, and if you want cell phone service, there has to be a tower. But it seems like the landowners that want to put a tower on their property and the neighbors that do not want a cell phone tower, all they do is throw stones back and forth at one another. There's this one cell phone event that's been going on. I think it's 123rd Street East by something or other. Anyway, it's been going on for months. And just ask him, does the voice of the person that's driving down the street that needs cell phone service have any kind of an input on yes or no vote on cell phone towers?
Interesting. That's a topic I have not heard been brought up, so that's a good one. I will definitely ask him on that. So you're saying in a lot of the rural communities with the cell phone tower that's needed for farmers or for drivers that's driving around, that if they have the right kind of say or the same or any type of say or voice when it comes to where the cell phone towers are, as opposed to only the property owner that may or may not like that tower being there.
That's right. And it gets so ridiculous that, and this is God's truth because I saw it with my own eyes on the television, a man sitting on his front porch looking out, they had to place the cell phone tower so it would not be in his line of sight. It had to be hidden behind a tree so he could not observe it.
Very
and
interesting.
that is God's. Yes. Next, they'll go after maybe radio towers. Although I love radio towers, I want one in my backyard. Please put if you're going to have a brand new FM tower, my backyard, I'd welcome it. Those beautiful red lights.
You know what? We'll keep that in mind. Whenever we're expanding and growing, that's what we may have to do. We'll put a radio tower right in your backyard there.
but I tell you what, Commissioner Howell will know exactly what I'm talking about. And another thing is, I just love it when when he comes on and he gives what's going to be going on the county commission meeting, also for the city and
absolutely
the city council. By the way, I really enjoy when your newsman comes on for about 5 minutes and discusses the news. I really enjoy that.
Well, we appreciate that, and I'm glad you mentioned that because it's time for that news update right now. So, Eddie, I appreciate that call. Let's go to Rick with the news. What do you say?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
And it's been a little bit since we've done that. Rick, good morning, sir.
It's been busy.
It's been busy, like you're doing, I don't know, news stuff and whatever, and I've just been kind of chatting the stuff here for the politicking and
Eddie, we appreciate the comment, and we appreciate all you listeners. Breaking news this morning, Wichita police investigating the shooting of a 15-year-old that happened on the city's northeast side. Police were called at about 6:30 this morning to the 1500 block of East Arnold. A 15-year-old shot in the leg. He's expected to survive the injuries. Although there were other people in the home at the time of the shooting, KWCH-TV reports that no one else was injured. Police still trying to investigate as to whether or not the shooting was drug or gang related. Wichita police did arrest a man for child abuse and murder last night. KWCH-TV reports that according to Sedgwick County online booking records, Doral Callis Gwynn was booked into the Sedgwick County Jail shortly before 7 o'clock last night for first-degree murder and child abuse. No word yet on what case that's connected to. We'll update you as the day goes on. A 7-year-old Oklahoma girl was so excited that she received a textbook that was actually used by country singer Blake Shelton.
Wow.
Yeah. Blake Shelton had signed his name in the book, as a little kid back in 1982 on a book called Look Away, Keys to Reading. So the kid was really excited about it. But of course, the story has to turn political because the mom is a former teacher. And she was critical that the textbook was in use still when Shelton had signed it in 1982. So she went on to voice her support for teachers who are demanding more funding for Oklahoma schools. Those demonstrations now in their second week as teachers demanding more classroom money. And leaders of Oklahoma's largest teacher union have said that the protests will keep going on and on. And on, unless the governor acts.
And done. Well done. You know what? Instead of actually being upset with the fact that it's still in rotation, they probably could have used the book to actually sell it since it had an autograph in it and be able to use that funds to actually give them money for the resources of the school the way they probably would have. Because that probably could have funded. I mean, come on, it's a popular guy. He's kind of a high name. They could have sold that and funded a classroom for 2 whole days.
Who knows? Yesterday, some good news on Wall Street. Markets responded, as did Facebook investors after day one of testimony by Mark Zuckerberg. He did a pretty good job, Andy, he did a pretty good job. I mean, you start a company in your college dorm and grow it to what it is today.
Did a good job. He deflected every single question there.
So perhaps he has a political career. That's the news. I'm out of here.
Oh, there it is. Rick with the news right there.
And that's
Appreciate
the
it very
news.
much. We've been playing some of the audio. We'll continue to play some of the audio from Mark Zuckerberg and some of those hearings yesterday. My opinion, he deflected the entire time. They didn't get a whole lot of information. And, oh, by the way, the government's all giddy about being able to control a private industry like Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook now with government regulations on safe spaces and transparency, quote unquote. But we will play those. But yeah, he looked like he was about to whiz himself the entire time. He really did. His eyes are all bug-eyed. He was all giddy. He was all scared. And I mean, the government coming down on him. It's a very scary thing, right? The government coming down. and I don't know. Your thoughts on that? Maybe he did do a good job. I thought he deflected because you only had that certain parameter of time. And could you rephrase the question? I don't quite understand what you're saying. Oh, could you rephrase that? Well, there's numerous ways I could answer this. Oh, out of time. Sorry, next question. That's really how it came down to last night. Your thoughts on that and more. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We have Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell coming up in just a minute. Let's go ahead and take an early break. When we come back, we'll have our county commissioner with what's happening at the meeting today, a recap of last week's meeting, and some of the hot topical issues, along with your thoughts and calls on that and more. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Doing the thing today on a Wednesday. Hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. We love having you aboard. Welcome in. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Hopefully you're starting off the day the best way. It is 50 degrees today, a lot better than the 25-degree weather we had starting off yesterday. So, hey, I'm all for that. It's time for our county update. Hailing in from Sedgwick County, he's Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, like we do every single week. Jim, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing wonderfully today, Andy. How you doing?
Hey, we are having more fun than we should be. It's been crazy. I love being able to talk about. We had our Tuesday meeting with the city council member Brian Fry. We love having you on Wednesday, and we don't talk about it nearly as much, but there's a lot of things happening right here in our very own community, isn't there?
You know, it's actually quite surprising how much material we have to wade through every week. It's incredible the subject matter that comes up as well.
That is true.
It's very interesting.
That is true. And before we get to the county meeting today and kind of a recap from last week, we did have a caller that called in at the bottom of the hour and asked a question about cell phone towers and the rights of who has a say on where the towers go. And when we start negotiating with the land that it goes on to and the property owner that allows it or does not allow it. And do the drivers, the people that use it, maybe that don't necessarily live there, but that utilize it, do they have any type of say in where the cell phone tower goes? I don't know anything about that kind of process. How does that process work?
Well, it's a great question. We use our normal building and constructions process to, basically it's a construction project. So they have to follow the same sort of rules that anybody that wants to build a building would follow. They file it with the planning department, and they generate a staff report, and usually the planning commission will take a look at it and approve. Some of these things are done by right, and some of these things are done through a special process of conditional use or some type of, in other words, it's called basically accepting some of the rules. In this case, there's some setbacks. The tower is about 150 feet tall, and so the code requires that you're 3 times the tower height.
Okay.
From any adjacent land or structures.
Sure.
The problem is where they wanted to locate the tower was closer to a adjacent neighbor's property line, and therein lies the challenge. They've got to get an exception from the process to make that exception. So, of course, the neighbors rally together, and we had a number of them that protested the tower because they didn't like the placement of the tower. Usually, sometimes the landowners themselves that actually have the tower do like it because generally they make a financial agreement with a tower provider. In this case, it was Verizon, and I just assume that the landowner is getting some type of financial incentive to put the tower there.
Sure.
But the neighbors don't want to look at that. They bought their house in the country and look out, there's this gigantic tower. And some of these things have lights on top. On top. Sometimes they make a little bit of noise, and so there's a little bit of concern by the neighbors, but they were able to negotiate a compromise, and unfortunately, it wasn't. It was almost exactly what both sides wanted. In this particular case, I don't think anybody really wanted the cell tower there, other than the landowner and Verizon. But they were willing to compromise, and they had selected an area. They said, if you guys put it right here, we'll just stop our protest. And they were unfortunately 100 feet off of that, and so the protest continued. And anyway, as a consequence, we did have this on our agenda last week. I didn't mention it because it was kind of in the weeds type of deal, but we did dispense with this last week. This has been going on for about 6 months. And, the really the last stop on this process is the county commission, unless they want to go to district court. There is a chance that they could always appeal this in district court, and a judge could override decisions made by the elected boards. But
do you think it'll go that far?
I don't think so. Not in this case. I think this is the end of the road for this one. But sometimes they go as high as district court, and of course they could appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court if they wanted to.
Sure.
But in this case, this was on last week's agenda. It was pretty contentious. It took about an hour to get through all of the information, and we had a pretty good debate on the county commission. And hate to tell you this, but it passed 4-1, and I was the one in this case. This is in my district. It's just a little bit north of 127th Street and 63rd Street South. As a consequence, I know these neighbors, and the reason I voted no for me was because they were very, very close to a compromise that both sides would agree to, but unfortunately the one side didn't quite follow through with what they had agreed to, and that was my contention. That's why I voted no. But to Eddie's point, it is important that we have cell towers. These companies that provide these services are in competition with each other, and they want to provide the best cell coverage. And believe it or not, a couple of years ago they passed a state law that really empowered cell phone companies to put these towers virtually anywhere they want to put them.
Sure.
But they are subject to the protest process that can happen through the permitting and that type of these things going up. So neighbors will always have a right to say that, and we resolve that basically through the elected boards come up and they eventually get to rule on that. They call this a quasi-judicial court, or if you will. We play with it's called we actually enter a judicial role in this case, where we actually have to look at the data that's presented and then rule on the data that's presented based on actually 9 rules that have been defined in the process. And we look at those 9 rules, and we have to make a ruling based on that. And if we mess that up, again, that sets that up for a potentially an appeal to a district court if we don't do that correctly. So it is a very interesting process. I didn't know much about this before I became a county commissioner. We have these cases come before us every few months on all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we rule in favor of the applicant, sometimes we rule in favor of the opposition, and it's just part of the process. But
let me ask you something.
In this case, the tower is going in, and so if you're a Verizon carrier, if you use Verizon, you might really enjoy the fact that you have a little bit better coverage right there.
A little bit better service. Sure. Let me ask you something, because you brought up an interesting point that I don't know. I'm assuming it doesn't happen, but let's say like an example like this where it's specific in one part of the county, one district, like where you're the only county commissioner that represents that district within the county. Do you have a little bit louder voice or say when it comes to the dialogue or discussion or even the vote, because it affects your district in the county more so than something that may affect the entire county, as more of like an economic development kind of thing, or something that's a generalization for the whole county, but it's really specific to one district, like an issue like this? Do you have any more of a say, any louder voice than the other county commissioners?
Well, so legally and technically, the answer is no. We're all exactly the same. So I can rule on something in the other part of the county just as same as any other commissioner could. But politically, I would say there's some truth to that. These people would say, "Tell me what you want for your district," and I might say what I think is right. And they're more willing to hear me because they want me to basically help. They want to empower me to make decisions for my district for the most part. So politically, what you're saying is true, but technically speaking, legally
they will
speaking,
listen to you a little
we're
bit
exactly
more.
Equal.
Sure. Okay. Good deal. We got about 4 minutes left here. I don't want to run out of time, but what's coming up? That was, as you mentioned, a bigger issue that kind of grew up last week on the county commission meeting. But what else happened, and what's coming up for the slate for this week?
Well, probably the biggest, hottest topic today is going to be a discussion on a new admin building. Now, we don't really feel like we need a new place to operate out of. However, the Kansas Supreme Court has changed our world in some ways, and they've changed the way they do court assignments for people in the criminal justice system. As a consequence, we're basically getting kicked out of our own building here, and so we're looking for a new place to set up our offices and that type of thing. So trying to find different ways of doing that, and so we're going to have a discussion today on that. And I can tell you this has already been a long process. There's been a lot of criticism, a lot of frustration, and a lot of friction perhaps between some of the people who have opinions on this. And so it's going to be a very interesting discussion today. I'm not sure we're going to resolve anything today, but it will certainly be an interesting discussion. I would not be surprised if you'll find that in the news media this evening. We also have a comprehensive plan amendment for the Delano district, which is our downtown, where Pat Manjax is, or those types of things. That's the Delano district. We have a comprehensive plan amendment for that area.
Sure.
We also have a road consideration for kind of an expensive process to rejuvenate 5 miles of road in the county. That will probably have some interesting discussion. We also have a very for most people, probably a fairly boring segment, but I actually find this kind of very, very interesting. It's a comprehensive annual financial report, what they call a CAFR. We have that report once a year. It is very detailed. It does take a fair amount of time to get through that. We have responsibility to the public and to our, to the electeds to really get into the weeds and show everyone exactly what's happening with Sedgwick County dollars. And so that's exactly what this is. And if you like numbers and you like details, this might be for you. I'm that kind of guy, but this can make people fall asleep, perhaps. And then, I do want to mention to you, though, last week, I heard you mention, I'll just do a quick recap. I could do this in about 1 minute.
Sure.
We did have a four and a half hour meeting last week. And we had, I think, at least 4 split votes last week, which makes that interesting. Those are the items that I look at a split vote saying there was controversy about that issue. For some reason, someone voted one way and someone voted the other way. Those are always the interesting topics. And I don't think any of that really made the news last week, which was really interesting to me. But we did provide some funding for the Greater Wichita Partnership as well as Project Wichita. Those are 2 projects. GWP is our economic development arm. Wichita also supports that. And then Project Wichita is a one-time effort to kind of poll the community to find out what they want government to do and how do they want to tailor the government to match the things that they want us to do in terms of quality of life or social issues, for example, homelessness or potholes, or what do they want us to do in terms of government. So this is going to be a study. It should hopefully be delivered back to us by around November of this year. It's a one-time expense. We spent $45,000 on that. Of course, I already mentioned the cell tower. And then we're trying to reconcile $3 million of outstanding billing with EMS and the VA hospital. That's been in the news a few times. We actually knocked that number down to $800,000 right now. We plan on having that resolved here next month or 2.
Sure.
And then, of course, we have what's called a county road program where each commissioner gets to pick 1 mile to pave in their district every other year. This is the year. And so we are essentially funding that as well. But the process on how that gets done got to be a really hotly kind of a pretty good debate last week. But that ultimately was approved. So we are going to be paving 5 miles of road this year.
This is kind of the big hot time where a lot of things are happening very quickly, and I love the fact that you guys are going through that budgetary bill today, as you mentioned, with all the numbers on there. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, we're out of time, my friend, but it's always great to talk to you. We'll do it again next week, my friend.
Awesome. We'll see you then.
Hey, it's always a great time. Let's wrap up hour number 2. Hour number 3 right around the corner. Lots more to get to. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
If you can put it on the ballot, and if you can get 51% of naive, ignorant individuals to not understand the purpose of the Second Amendment, to not understand the purpose of shooting a gun, to not understand the role of what having a gun or a militia is all about, to understand the background check process. You don't understand because you've never done it. To have that much of a voice. It is the blind leading the blind.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM simulcasting on KGBT TV, channel 2610. Hey, it's a Wednesday, hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's the way we roll today. And it's great to have you on board with us. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you are more than welcome to do so. 8 minutes past the hour. We have our Facebook Live feed up and rolling. We have the Twitter at Hoosier Reason. You can also email me, Andy, at KQAMradio.com. Speaking of Facebook, by the way, we have our... we tried to get a hold of our guest, not able to get a hold of him yet. We may try and get him on later on in the show. Dr. Wes Parham, he is the author of the book Be a Hater, as there's a lot of hate going around in society, and we'll try and get him on the show, if not today, then a later time. So right now it's open lines to you if you do want to chime in on anything that you'd like to talk about, 316-721-8255. Speaking of Facebook, our Facebook Live is up and rolling, and I'm really excited. We've been getting some really good numbers on there. It's been reaching new individuals. We have a lot of people that love to jump on and be able to watch the show, be able to listen to it if they're not able to tune in on the radio or on TV, and we appreciate that very much. And the goal is, the reason that we have social media like this, the reason is that we like to network. You like to network as an individual, to network with your friends or your family, to be able to see pictures, to be able to share pictures of the family and friends. You like to do these things. As a business, people like to network their business, to let people know about sales they have going on, specials they have going on, products that they have available. As a radio station, we like to show you the product that we have. Myself being the product, that if you enjoy my monologue, if you enjoy my show, or if you don't enjoy it, if you want to dialogue, if you want to debate, if you want to argue with me, or if you want to agree with me, that's the purpose of the networking. And we've forgotten the meaning of networking in many cases because not all the networking is positive. Or it doesn't have to be positive. Let's put it that way. It doesn't have to be positive. We can debate, we can dialogue, we can argue, we can disagree, and it doesn't even have to be political. It could be the fact that you wore the sweater and you took a photo with the Christmas sweater that your grandma sewed you and made for you, and then you posted it on there, and people are like, not sure if I like that. And then you say, no, it's beautiful, you will enjoy it. And these can be debates that you have on there. But right now, we're having an open forum with Mark Zuckerberg in our congressional hearing about the silencing of certain groups on social media. Now, as I understand it, as we talked about before, this is a private company that offers a product that you can choose to have on, or to for you to actually use. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to agree to the terms. You don't have to actually have an account. You don't have to be part of it. You can choose the choice for you to either be accepted on there or not be accepted on there. And it's a very simple process. And right now we have a government that's wanting to interview him on why, number one, it's being censored, which I don't agree with them censoring or silencing or shutting down certain groups. But at the same time, does he have the right to do so? Yeah, I guess he kind of does. Now, if every company begins to do this and becomes a little more marginalized, I mean, imagine this. If we have Facebook that starts weeding out conservative groups and only likes the progressives being on there, and he even admitted that. And I played the interview from Ted Cruz with him asking the question to Mark Zuckerberg on what he thought about the censoring of conservative groups on this on the platform, on Facebook.
There have been numerous instances with Facebook. In May of 2016, Gizmodo reported that Facebook had purposely and routinely suppressed conservative stories from trending news, including stories about CPAC, including stories about Mitt Romney, including stories about the Lois Lerner IRS scandal, including stories about Glenn Beck. In addition to that, Facebook has initially shut down the Chick-fil-A Appreciation Day page, has blocked a post of a Fox News reporter, has blocked over 24 Catholic pages, and most recently blocked Trump supporters Diamond and Silk's page with 1.2 million Facebook followers after determining their content and brand were, quote, unsafe to the community. To a great many Americans, that appears to be a pervasive pattern of political bias. Do you agree with that assessment?
Senator, let me say a few things about this. First, I understand where that concern is coming from because Facebook and the tech industry are located in Silicon Valley, which is an extremely left-leaning place. And this is actually a concern that I have and that I try to root out in the company, is making sure that we don't have any bias in the work that we do. And I think it is a fair concern that that people would at least wonder about.
All right, first off, two assessments from that question. Number one, Mark Zuckerberg filled a whole lot of time saying a whole lot of nothing. You know, it's a concern that I've been actually having with the fact that my headquarters is in Silicon Valley and it's very liberal there. It's been a concern that I've been having and we need to start weeding it out. That's a complete BS kind of response. First off, when you sign on to a company and you sign the terms and you sign the agreement, you sign the contracts, the majority of the time, there's some kind of clause in there that says you're not allowed to discriminate. You're not allowed to discriminate in the office, in the workplace, for political views, for religious views. You're not allowed to do it. And if you do, then you're subject to getting fired. And that's actual grounds for you to be fired and be released from the company. So if it's something that you're very concerned about, Mark Zuckerberg, then you'd be able to say, you know what, you censored these people. They are non-threatening to others. It's just a different political view. You're fired. You're gone because how dare you censor them? And then you move on. And even in a very progressive liberal area, then people put their politics aside when they show up to work. I know it's a crazy concept. I mean, with football players being able to wear an NFL jersey while they're wearing the jersey representing the company, representing the franchise, representing the team, they're still able to kneel during the national anthem. Apparently, we've forgotten the fact that when you put on your uniform and go to work, that you do not have a political voice anymore because you're now representing them. You can do whatever you want to on your personal time. But once you put on that uniform and you clock in for the day, then your political views go outside of the window, except for, of course, like this, where I actually do that for a living. That's my job. Or you're driving in your car, but guess what? You're on personal time. So that, first off, that response is completely ridiculous, which is why I say that Mark Zuckerberg has been terrible with these responses, because he's filled a lot of time. He hasn't said anything, and he's been very wishy-washy on any of the responses that he's received. That's the first point that we need to take away from. The second point is that if he chooses to do this, which I guess it's his prerogative as a business owner to say and decide, you know what, I really don't want conservatives on my platform. I want to isolate myself. I don't want a lot of people that are of opposing views. So I'm going to lose a lot of users, but I'd rather lose those users and have a safe space, quote unquote, for my users, for individuals that I feel may be in the more of the majority, because there's more people that view this way. And therefore, I'm going to protect them, and I'm going to isolate them from conservative points of view. I guess that's his prerogative. On the other side, then conservatives get upset. We go to a different platform. We start a new social media outlet, and we start that group. What's been an issue that we've seen lately? The lack of dialogue, the lack of debates, the lack of coming together and having a discussion on issues, and the extreme partisanship. And do you think that that's going to help society in any way, shape, or form if we continue to isolate ourselves with only people that we agree and disagree with? That's why I've stayed on Facebook. I know a lot of people don't like that, and they say, I'm done. I can't deal with Mark Zuckerberg. I don't like it, yada, yada, yada. I'm closing my account. I'm stopping it. I can't deal with me being censored, with my private data being, which the data thing and the personal information is a whole other scenario and another discussion I want to get into here as well. But that's why I've stayed on, because I like the dialogue and the discussion. And yes, I know that the Facebook Live that we do is probably not reaching as many people as it potentially could with the algorithm that's set up. It possibly could be, but maybe it's being silenced a little bit. When I post something as a news article or an opinion, and I put a little commentary on top of the article link that I'm sharing on my page or the KQAM page or the Voice of Reason page or somewhere, and I'm sharing it on there, is it reaching everybody that it potentially could? Because of the algorithm that says, you know what, it's not a top priority for people to see on their wall and on their notifications, so therefore it's going to be dropped down. So unless you're actually searching for 20 minutes scrolling through there because you got nothing better to do with your life, then you may not see that, because the algorithm does not put it as a top priority. I understand that. But I like the dialogue and I like the discussion. I like to see what else is out there as well. Because I do not like marginalizing myself to be in an isolated little bubble to where I only am around other people that actually support me, or support the cause, or support somebody else, a politician or elected official or movement or whatever. I don't like that. And that's why I stay on. He has a prerogative to do that. He has the opportunity to do that, and other businesses do as well. But is it helping society, or is that allowing the continuation of the marginalization of everyone being isolated within their own little groups of what they feel comfortable with? 316-721-8255. Got some calls lining up here. Let's get your thoughts on this. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Jim, what's happening?
Well, the hearings are going to go on again today. I was watching that yesterday, and I was very unhappy that Senator Cruz didn't follow up his question about Diamond and Silk by asking Mr. Zuckerberg, and did you look and find out which one of your employees kicked these two ladies off, and have they been fired or disciplined in any way? I mean, you know, he says that Silicon Valley is all a bunch of liberal people, but he didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything about it. Yeah, and he tried to say and he even said, I'm really concerned about that myself, but that's a liberal area with Silicon Valley. So what? You are the owner of the company, and you have people checking in, punching into the clock, and going and doing their job on censoring on what's okay and what's not okay to be on Facebook, and they openly chose to want to censor someone who's a conservative, and you allowed that to happen without any repercussions, without any type of firing, without any type of slap on the wrist, and saying you're not allowed to do that because I want conservatives to feel comfortable on my platform so they continue to use it, and that way I can get advertisers to reach them. I have. Oh, yeah, they're fantastic. I love them.
Yeah, I mean, what is dangerous about those people?
There's nothing. They are entertaining. They're witty. I think they're fantastic, and I'm a big fan of them. Jem, you bring a great point to it. I appreciate that call very much. So 316-721-8255. It's his prerogative. That's what he wants to do. But don't lie to us. Don't go to Congress and stand there and be all shaky and wide-eyed and look like you're about to wet yourself because you're so scared, but then not give us anything and then say you're concerned about issues that you've allowed to happen. The other part of this was there's two really parts to this. One of them is the censoring of political speech and the censorship and the hate speech and yada, yada, yada. And the other part of it is the personal information. And I got to admit, Dick Durbin asked a really good question yesterday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
I think that may be what this is all about. Your right to privacy, the limits of your right to privacy, and how much you give away in modern America in the name of, quote, connecting people around the world. The question basically of what information Facebook's collecting, who they're sending it to, and whether they ever asked me in advance my permission to do that.
No, it's a really good question. I agree with the sentiment there. The problem is that Dick Durbin has been one of the more progressive individuals, obviously, as a Democrat in government, that's actually been very open about wanting to use metadata, collect metadata, being able to collect your personal information, and probably has collected information from users of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all the other ones as well, because the government gets that information. So the question is great. The sentiment's fantastic, but at the same time, we're kind of talking hypocrisy here with the hypocrite asking the hypocrite about what hypocrisy actually is, which is quite ironic. Let's go back to the phones here, shall we? Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Can have a waffle or a biscuit.
How we doing?
Hello.
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 Hey, there we go. What's going on?
How are you?
Hey, we're living the dream, my friend. What's happening today?
Nothing much. I appreciate this topic you're sharing. It's one that's very close to my heart. I think that we are in a society, in a world where people are not really valuing this opportunity to have dissent and disagreement, and we're cultivating a culture where people are incapable of dealing with it. And for me, that's a fascinating concept.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we isolate ourselves around people that we majoritively agree with, which to a certain degree isn't bad because we don't want to be on the defense and battling all the time. But at the same time, when we do that too much, we lose that discussion to where, I mean, conservatives and liberals don't debate anymore. And that's when we come to which I criticize all the time, with the fact of compromise in government. We don't know how to compromise anymore because we have the diehards of either we're going to get everything we want or we're not going to support it in any way, shape, or form. And that's not helping society on both ends of the aisle in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're turning people into enemies versus being able to have civil debate. And that's really what the problem is. When they're your enemy, then you can't even see if they have positive intentions. You can't see if they have, positive ideas or just a different approach. You just automatically see them as an enemy. So anything they say is wrong.
Exactly. Have you noticed when you try and debate somebody that they don't know how to debate anymore? Because once they get fired up and worked up and they disagree with you so much that it's now become personal, and no longer do they say, well, your point's wrong because yada, 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 but you're an idiot because of X, Y, and Z, and therefore you do not have a discussion or do not have any type of validity to be in this discussion, so I'm going to dismiss everything you say because you're a jerk or you're X, Y, and Z. I mean, you probably heard that all the time, haven't you?
Yeah, there's a scholar named Paul Gottfried who calls it the dehumanization of dissent, and it's that idea that we're going to make you a jerk, a bigot, or a lily, or whatever it is, so that now I don't have to pay attention to you. Now I don't have to engage with you anymore.
And the sad part is that now that is the mainstream. I've had a lot of people try and call in and argue and debate with me on the air, which I absolutely love. But a lot of times, some people just don't know how to debate or argue because it's not a personal thing. And when they get worked up, it leads to a personal attack because they don't know how to respond. And it's really quite sad.
Yeah, and I think it's affecting our society dramatically in a lot of different ways. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is only going to hurt it even more. So I appreciate the call. Great point. I mean, that's exactly what we need to be aware of. And you're right. I mean, we have the right to decide what platform we want to be on. And if we don't like Facebook, if we don't like social media, if we don't like any of it because of that. But at the same time, is that really going to help us? Is that really going to help us if we start limiting ourselves to only be around people that we agree with? And even if we're getting silenced or censored, does that mean that we walk away from it, or that we fight even harder to try and change it from within? Surprisingly, just like the government, we want to change it from within rather than actually just walk away from it. 24 minutes past the hour. We'll open up lines to you when we come back as well. 316-721-8255. Got to take a break. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Can you define hate speech?
Senator, I think that this is a really hard question, and I think it's one of the reasons why we struggle with it. There are certain definitions that we have around, calling for violence or.
Let's just agree on that.
That was Senator Ben Sasse yesterday interviewing Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, yeah, can you define hate speech? Well, that's a really tough one. I got algorithms to try and stop hate speech, but I can't quite define exactly what it is. So, you know what? If someone says something I don't like, that's probably some form of hate speech, and I can try and censor it because I don't know. Next question. If I just fill a lot of time, then I can just move on to the next person who's not going to hate me nearly as much. Yeah, 316-721-8255. Let's go back to the phones here. Line number 3. Good morning. What's your name? Hello.
Yeah, hello?
Yeah, how we doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Yeah, what's going on?
My comment on this is all indicative of the lack of corporal punishment in schools. If you spank your child, you're an evil person. And that allows these kids to just throw temper tantrums and fits. Now we have young adults throwing temper tantrums and fits because they were never taught how to conduct themselves properly in public and with each other.
It's a great point. I mean, the teachers aren't allowed to punish the children anymore. The parents aren't allowed to punish the children anymore, really. I mean, if you spank your kid at home even, then you'll have the threat of having them taken away from you, because how dare you actually do something like that? You need to be their friend, not their parent, and they kind of run the roost now. And I mean, we read in the last hour about some of the apps of what children are using that could be very promiscuous and allow them to do things that their parents have no idea about. That's kind of scary in that sense. And you're right. I mean, now we have these opportunities like social media to where they're able to go out and do whatever they want to, and no one's allowed to tell them yay or nay, and they haven't been taught the right lessons of life, per se, to hold them on the right path, to hold themselves accountable and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be engaging this type of behavior.
Exactly so. And then you end up with David Hogg on the news cussing and telling adults how they could handle, these kids could handle democracy better than, adults. So
sure. No.
I think it's all indicative of the root cause of going back to that, because that usurped the authority of parents, that usurped the authority of churches, and prevents Christians from, or anybody of any religion from dealing with their children the way they feel they should.
That's a really great point. I love that. I appreciate the call. You hit it right on there. I mean, we need to really look at where the root of it's coming from. We can peel away the layers of the onion all we want to, but the main reason is people are acting this way because they've been allowed to act this way, to where you're right. David Hogg is attacking everybody left and right, going after media outlets like Laura Ingraham and other talk shows, and saying that they're really upset and that they're going to stop all these things because they've been very naive on the issues. They've been very upset, and they've had a voice to do so. So why not just listen to them? Because, hey, they got a lot of followers on social media. Bottom of the hour news coming up. We got a lot more calls in here. Stay tuned. We'll get to you as soon as we come back.
Spreading the love on a daily basis.
And
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I know you love my singing voice. Welcome back into it. This is the Voice of Reason, wrapping up the program today on a hashtag freedom-loving Wednesday. We appreciate you hanging out with us today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We got the lines lit up. We'll get back to the phone calls here. I do real quick, though, and I related this in the first hour, and I think it's appropriate with this entire story with Facebook, with the government, with you and I as the users. And I referred it to as we love tales, we love stories, we love being able to relate things. And you remember the little kid story, the Little Red Riding Hood? The original, not the fairy tale of the kid where it's nice and happy-go-lucky sort of thing, but the original Little Red Riding Hood, where the wolf's been following her and tracking her in the woods and hiding behind the trees and the brush and the shrubs and the patches of tall grass, and goes up and asks the little child where she's going. And she says, yeah, I'm going to my grandma's house. And he says, well, maybe you should pick some flowers to bring to her. And that distracts her enough to where he can go and eat the grandma, disguised as her, eats the grandma, and then sits down in the bed and waits for her to come. And then when she gets there, she realizes, wait a second, this isn't quite what we thought. Grandma, what deep voice you have. It's better to greet you with, my dear. Yeah. What big eyes you have, it's better to see you with, my dear. What big hands you have, it's better to hug and grab you with, my dear. And then what big mouth do you have, Grandma? Well, it's better to eat you with. And the wolf in the original story ends up eating the little girl and the grandma, goes back to sleep. Now, that's not the end of the story. As the woodcutter and the hunter comes in, sees what happens, cuts the wolf open, saves the little girl and the grandma, puts rocks into the belly of the wolf, so when the wolf wakes up, cannot go anywhere and ends up dying in that sense. And in this metaphor, are we not Little Red Riding Hood? Using Facebook like grandma is the idea, not what the grandma actually is or what Facebook actually is, because Facebook's actually very corrupt in that sense. But the idea of Facebook, of the networking and the purpose of what it was originally intended for, the sweet little grandma that we love, that we want to go to all the time, that we want to network with, that we want to see, that we love little innocent, loving grandma all the time. And we go to visit her as much as we possibly can. The idea of Facebook is us, the user, the Little Red Riding Hood, wanting to go see grandma. The big bad wolf in this metaphor is the government, because they see the opportunity to regulate. They see the opportunity to take advantage of. They come in, they're disguised as the innocent Little Red Riding Hood. Oh, we're so innocent, we want to see what you're all about. Let's eat you and consume you. Now that we've done that, let's put on the sheep's clothing and let's wait for you to come to us because you want us to take care of you. We want to be looking like the innocent little grandma, but we're not. You want to come to us, and then we consume you as well. The government is what we need to be concerned about in this, because the government now gets to regulate everything about you. It takes a Little Red Riding Hood to a whole different level now, doesn't it? 316-721-8255. Let's go back to the phones here. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hello.
Hello. How we doing?
Hi, this is Phil.
What's going on, Phil?
Bill.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. Yeah, what's going on?
I just wanted to bring out that there is another product other than Facebook. It's called MeWe. Are you familiar with that?
I am not familiar with that one, no.
It was designed by some folks to do exactly what Facebook has been charged with right now, and that is, and it's MEWE.com. And so if you want to have a major cross-country website where you can have social media and not worry about people looking over your shoulder, it's something that all the conservatives probably should move over to and take their business away from Facebook.
Well, there it is. So MeWe, MEWE.com, MeWe.com, and it's a networking website like Facebook, but for many conservative-minded individuals.
Well, for anybody that doesn't want to have people looking over their shoulder, not saying that if you're doing something bad, but I'm just talking about, if there are certain things that Facebook won't let you discuss. For example, if you wanted to talk about trading guns, you could get on there, and there are groups that do that. There are groups that do a lot of different positive things, have positive conservative conversations, but they don't want to be blocked by Facebook.
Very
So
interesting. We'll
product to take a look at.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that, Bill, very much. Have a great Wednesday. I appreciate that idea. I do want to look at, now that we know more social media websites are coming out, I've thought about, with both the KQAM page, with the Voice of Reason show, and with a lot of the stuff, trying to reach out to many of those different ones, because it's always, I mean, from the business networking standpoint, it's always great to be on different outlets and different networking sites and be involved in many ones, because we reach different crowds. So that may be one that we may start up, because I'd like to. I mean, it's more to try and maintain all of these, but it's important, I think, to be able to have that presence on these, and especially for conservative, more like-minded individuals that don't, not the fact of a lack of disagreement, but for privacy issues, that might be something to consider. 316-721-8255. Let's go back to the phones. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
G'day, Andy. How are you, mate? It's Rick.
Rick, what's going on, my friend?
Mate, not too bad down under.
Hey, there you go. What time is it out there? It's close to midnight your time, ain't it?
It is. It's 20 to 12. Almost the witching hour.
That's almost. You're having a great one down there. What's your take from the outside look on all this whole discussion with social media and with Mark Zuckerberg and the government looking at the privacy issues? I mean, what's your take on this?
Okay. Well, let me point something out, and it should be pretty much self-explanatory. Obviously you get on Facebook, and many of the other users do, and you talk privately in message on chat, you know.
Sure.
Then every so often you'll get a message pop up, and it'll say like Fred Nurk, whoever you're talking to. Fred Nurk has sent you an invite to, you know, download Messenger. No, he hasn't.
Sure.
So if you download that on your phone,
not usually the best choice to make.
Oh, no. Look, I actually wanted to call and explain, if I could, a couple of things with regards to mobile phones and how mobile phones are inherently, by their design, very, very unsecure.
Just your regular mobile phone, your regular cell phone that can be tampered with easily?
Yeah, very easily, just by the way they're designed. See, every mobile phone has what's known as an IMSI chip, which stands for an International Mobile Subscriber Identity.
Okay.
That's put out the factory. You just call it like an electronic fingerprint. Okay.
Sure.
So it doesn't belong to anyone. It's just in the phone. Now, the moment it fires up, the IMSI's job is to go, all right, where the hell am I? Let's see. For you, it would be Northern Hemisphere, then your country, your state, your city, your county. And from there, it looks at the tower, and then it joins a network, and it recognizes who you are by your SIM card.
Okay.
So from there, it figures out whether or not you're supposed to be on that network. Are you a customer?
Uh-huh.
So basically, it fingerprints where you are anywhere, and it only takes a few seconds. It knows where in the hell in the world you are, what country you're in, right down to how far you are away from whatever particular cell tower you're in.
Sure.
Now, you can probably, I guess, it's pretty easy to understand. Just like Tarzan used to swing from tree to tree, right? Mobile phones swing from tower to tower because they want to connect constantly so you don't get an interruption. There is a problem with that, and it leaves you open to hacking. There is units out there called IMSI captures. Okay, these basically it involves a laptop, a radio with a unit that can scan multiple frequencies, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and with some pretty nasty software. So essentially, these things can scoop like fish in an aquarium. You know, these things can have a range of a mile.
Okay,
and they'll scoop up anything and everything that moves. If they find a particular number that they're after, they can operate in two modes. It's called a man-in-the-middle attack. For example, if your cell tower is pushing, say, 500 watts, and your phone's pretty dumb, and it's like every couple of seconds, are you there? Cell tower goes, yes, I am.
Sure.
If a man in the middle, in other words, an operator gets in the middle, and these things can be operated from a car, from a truck, from a drone, from an aircraft with a propeller, not jets because they're too quick. If he's pushing 1,000 watts, your phone will go, well, I'm after tower ABC 123. Oh, your signal is just same number, same tower. You must be the guy, and it'll automatically connect.
Mm-hmm.
From there, it'll operate in two modes. Passive mode, which is from the cell phone through the man in the middle to the tower and off to the network and back again. In active mode, attack mode, what can happen is the operator can upload software into your phone's operating system. Okay, it can inject malware. And some of the things that they can do with the malware, and after that's done, they can actually disconnect, and it doesn't really matter, because for the rest of the phone's life, they have access to things like turning your camera on or off, front and rear as they choose, turning your microphone up. They have complete access to all your messages, your photos, your emails, anything and everything that you do, and the phone's entire history. They can turn your GPS back on when your settings say it's off.
Interesting.
Yeah, look.
No, I'm not one that likes to use the GPS on there a whole lot. I use it maybe if I need to get somewhere new, but other than that, every time you download a new app on your phone, it says, do you want them to be able to
find out where you are?
Yeah, find out where you are, and do you want them to use your data tracker and whatever? And I always put no on there because I don't like every app knowing where I am, because I don't think that's really a purpose or point to that. But it asks you on every single app that you actually download on your phone, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah. Look, this really became a problem about 10 years ago. Think about it. You'd have a company, and the company would have 100 employees, and their company would have to go out and buy 100 phones.
Sure.
And one of the bean counters must have come up with the concept, hey, listen, instead of giving these idiots a phone, just let them go and download our company app. Now, that's awesome, because you work for them 8 hours a day or 10 or 12 hours a day, whatever.
Sure.
And the rest of the time, that phone is yours.
Sure.
The thing is, if on your own time, or if you happen to have an application that likes to know where you are and can also take all your data, they can also take your company's data with them too, can't they?
Wow.
Think about it.
It's a really scary thing to think about how much that can potentially become, because we've heard a lot of people about being able to track you or being able to get that information, or the malware, which I had heard that cell phones and mobile phones were very apt to being able to fight off malware. And then when it came to security, I don't know if you remember the case, I think it was out of California about a year or two ago, of a murder case or a terrorist case or something.
No, Apple.
Yeah, and Apple wanted access to, or the government wanted access to the Apple phone, because they didn't have that, which I thought they did already, and Apple said, no, you're not going to be able to access that, and it's encrypted, and we can't unencrypt it for you, and yada, 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 and it became this whole ordeal. So I had thought that many even Apple phones were maybe a little more secure than other ones, but apparently that's not true.
Well, no, I mean, but as I said, by the very, very nature they work. See, it's all to do with the operating system that's on the phone. Now, there's a company, and I won't give them a plug, okay, but for my part, I designed some multimedia for them because of a presentation they were doing. But the phones that they have are absolutely amazing. These things are 512-bit encryption from the moment you speak, 2056-bit straight down the line, and the keys decrypted at the other end. It annoys the living daylights out of the system because, I'm sorry, you can't have a piece of it, and
Sure.
They really don't like anything they can't control. Like I said, I won't plug the company, but it's an Aussie mob, and there is some. Yeah, the thing is, at the end of the day, think about this. Do you remember when they were saying, "Oh, we do need to, we demand the keys to WhatsApp"?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, that's
well,
right.
because terrorists are doing. Okay, hang on a second. First of all, terrorists are not dumb. Second of all, they've got money. What's stopping them from creating their own app?
Sure. It's very easy to do nowadays.
Right.
Apparently, we're teaching it with our high school or middle school students around the world, is how to create your own app, which I have no idea how to do, but apparently there are a lot smarter kids on that than I am.
Exactly. So the thing is, why is it a case of you want access to people, or you're actually trying to stop what goes on? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if lunatics are out there, they're going to create their own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and there's the other thing, and we're running short of time. We got to take a break in a minute, but I remember
that's okay.
some of the terrorist attacks that were happening over in the Middle East, and ISIS would tweet on their Twitter account and say that, yeah, we're responsible for it, and we praise so-and-so for actually doing it, yada, yada, yada. And the government was always like, well, we need access to that account on Twitter. And I always wondered how they already didn't have that, and how ISIS is able to just simply put out a tweet on Twitter and say, yeah, we're responsible and we loved it, and thanks to so-and-so for actually being able to do something like that. To me, that's a mind-boggling concept that a terrorist organization can tweet something like that on a major media platform.
I know. It just to me, it boggles the mind. It just doesn't make sense. So,
wow.
I mean, think about it. Anyone who says that, I'm not a criminal. I've done nothing wrong. That's fine. But saying that it's like free speech, it's the same thing. Saying that you don't care about your privacy is like saying you don't care about free speech because you've got nothing to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very true, and that's where we've gone. I was concerned that society would go more towards, like you had mentioned, I got nothing to hide, so let's go ahead and allow the government to have all the collection data, and let's not have any privacy and yada yada yada, because that's an outdated thing. But I think we're seeing the turning of the tide, and we're seeing people say, "Wait a second, we've gone too far down the road of lack of privacy. We're going to start finding ways to be able to become private again," because people may start becoming very concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, the pendulum is obviously swung way too far the other way.
Mm-hmm. It's a really great point. Rick, down in Australia, my friend, I got to ask you real quick, coming from Australia, do you get people down there that say it, or do you get, jerks that try and be really funny when they come down to travel down there and say, "Oh, let's put another shrimp on the barbie"? Do they come down and say that all the time?
Yeah, okay. First of all, they're not shrimps, they're prawns. Second of all, they're biscuits, not cookies, okay? Thirdly of all, coffee is coffee. And, I guess it's the other end of the world. We do sometimes, but they're pretty good.
That's hilarious. Usually. That's funny. I wondered if anybody'd ever try to go down there and try and act all Australian and try and say that and you guys just shake your head and be like, you guys are jerks.
No, we're a pretty easygoing mob, we don't sit there and get our back up too hard.
I love it. Rick, I appreciate the call, my friend. Always a pleasure to chat.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, there we go. All right, Rick from Australia down there. Appreciate him. And again, I mean, that's the greatness of networking and social media right there, finding the show on Facebook Live and with that social media. Got some more calls on the line. Stay here. Got to take a break, wrap up the show. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the program. Wrapping up the show today. It goes by way too fast, and we have way too much fun here. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink. But hey, you know what? We're excited. Let's carpe diem all over this place. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Let's take another phone call. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, this is Chris.
Hey, good morning, Chris. How are you?
Well, pretty good, but I couldn't just listen to this and not chime in on my own alternative to Facebook, even though you were talking about separating everything.
No, go for it.
I'm the guy who works with Bleeding Blue movie that I got a hold of you a few weeks ago, and Kevin Jackson, the guy who is also with that, has started something called TeaPartyCommunity.org.
Sure. Okay.
And there's also a .com, but the .org one is updated and it's kind of in beta mode right now. But people can still join. I know for a fact that we also allow people who don't think like Tea Party members, because I was talking to one yesterday, but
that are allowed in there.
Yeah.
Sure. And and that's the thing, and I don't want people to be thinking that, I only want to be on organizations or platforms like this that are always against me just because I like the dialogue so much, which I kind of do. But at the same time, I mean, we need our area to where we do see people that are very comfortable with the ideas and actually like us, because that's how we help improve our ideas as well. So we need a happy blend. And I love platforms to where we allow anybody on there. And Facebook obviously is starting to move towards that way. And Mark Zuckerberg admitted that yesterday during his hearings.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. So again, anyway. so what's the one that you're working on? We got about 20 seconds here, and I want to talk to you more about that. And I know that we're going to get you on to talk about that soon. But give us a little blurb of where it is and what it is.
The movie or the platform?
The platform. The platform.
The platform is TeaPartyCommunity.org. There's also a .com, but it's an old one, and they're going to blend them soon. But the older one is kind of dated.
TeaPartyCommunity.org. Good. We can check that out as well. And then, I do want to chat with you about the details of the platform and the movie as well. So, Chris, I appreciate that very much. And another opportunity right there, another option for us to be able to advance conservatism, have our voice heard, have it not be silenced. It's our choice to be able to choose what media platforms we want to. And if we don't like Facebook, don't join Facebook. I know a lot of people that don't join Facebook. a lot of people that do like to join Facebook. It's your choice. You're not being forced one way or another, and the government's not going to solve the problem one way or another either. This is The Voice of Reason, everybody. Have a great Wednesday.